Okay, thank you very much. And welcome everybody to Celebrating Cycling Cities, a partner event of the EU Green Week 2021. My name is Henk Swartouw. I am president of the European Cyclist Federation, and we, ECF, the European Cycling Federation, are the European umbrella organization of all national cyclists organizations, citizens organizations, inside and outside the EU and even beyond Europe. In one sentence, what we do at ECF is that we work for more and better cycling for all in Europe and beyond. We are co-hosting this event, and I'm very proud of this, with the Dutch Cycling Embassy, which is a network of public and private organizations and which work to share Dutch cycling expertise worldwide. And also the Dutch Cycling Embassy is an associate member of ECF. Both our organizations are convinced that cycling must increase significantly if we ever are going to solve the climate crisis and to realize the ambitions of the European Green Deal. And then I haven't even mentioned cycling's massive positive side effects, such as less congestion, better public health, more livable cities, more vibrant local communities, etc. Actually, 70% of Europeans live in cities, and that's why cities will lead the way. And that is exactly what many European cities are doing right now, and Matthew Baldwin will talk about that later. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that our cities really need to develop more resilient and equitable mobility systems and make a better allocation of public space. During the pandemic, particularly in the earlier phase, many cities introduced pop-up cycle lanes, low traffic neighborhoods, etc. And actually it worked. More citizens took up cycling and the industry could hardly keep up providing the bicycles. And now, hopefully with the end of the pandemic in sight, citizens and authorities alike don't want to return to the status quo that we had before the pandemic, and they are raising their ambitions. And that is good news for all of us. So today, slowly coming out of the pandemic, 10 European cities are joining us and are going to tell us what they did, and we will celebrate them for that. Representatives of the European Union institutions will join us and they will share their wisdom and they will paint a bigger picture. And we're also fortunate, we cyclists, to have some friends in high places. Dutch Minister Stientje van Veldhoven is with us today. And only last week, together with 54 other European countries, she endorsed the Pan-European Master Plan on Cycling Promotion. At the European Commission, we have our great friend, my former colleague, Frans Timmermans, who is our undisputed cycling champion. And one of his staff members, Daniel Mess, is also with us today. So, and unfortunately, Frans Timmermans cannot himself be with us, but we have a short video message from him. And later, as I said, we will hear from one of his close collaborators. So please start the video.
It is easy to be passionate and even romantic about cycling, but we have to be practical as well. We need better infrastructure. We need more bike lanes. You see cities all over the world, and especially in Europe, concentrating on that. And in the Green Deal that we have launched, we need to make sure that we help cities create the right infrastructure. That this tremendously useful thing, which is called the bicycle, has even become more accessible to all generations, in all conditions, because of electric bikes that have now come into play and are really causing, I think, a revolution and opening it up to everyone. I believe the bicycle has a wonderful and romantic past, but also a glorious future ahead of it. And it will have a glorious future because it will be taken up by millions and millions more people, not just in the Netherlands, not just here in Belgium, not just in Denmark, not just in all these other places where traditionally it was already done, but in all of Europe, so that we will be able to say in the near future, bicycling is a European way.
So thank you very much, Executive Vice President Timmermans. And on that note, I now hand over to Jill Warren, who is the CEO of the European Cyclist Federation, and Lucas Harms, the CEO of the Dutch Cycling Embassy, who will be our hosts this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Henk, thank you very much. On behalf of the European Cyclists Federation and the Dutch Cycling Embassy, we are delighted with the huge interest in today's event, which underscores the desire for more cycling-friendly cities and the interest in our high-caliber lineup of speakers today. So we'll start with an EU perspective. Our first keynote is with Daniel Mes, member of Executive Vice President Timmermans' cabinet, and also a champion of cycling as an essential ingredient in delivering the European Green Deal. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jill, and it's really absolute an honor to be here. And actually, Frans Timmermans did ask me personally to apologize for the fact that he could not make it. He is really a true passionate for cycling. So this would have been an event that he would love to have done, but his agenda is pretty brutal. So that's why I need to step in and fill his very big shoes. But we here at Team Timmermans actually really like that this is a celebration of cycling cities. A celebration which we all like is a moment to look back at past successes and to look ahead to even a brighter future. And that applies so much to the bicycle, that invention that has brought us and previous generations already so much. In the 1900s, the freedom machine, the cycling was called the freedom machine, allowed women to move around without a chaperone. In the 1970s, during the bike boom in America, it allowed people to move around in a clean and affordable way when the crisis hit them. And now in 2021, in Europe, the bike is a crucial part of the European Green Deal and its important climate ambitions. Now, why is that? Why is the bike so important to Frans Timmermans' European Green Deal? As many of you will have known, the European Green Deal is our roadmap to make our continent climate neutral by 2050. And to reach that very ambitious objective, we need to look at our mobility and need to make sure that our mobility is both zero emission, clean and affordable. And that is where the bike comes in. As Frans, my boss, said already, across Europe and far beyond the traditional Dutch and Danish places, but also places in Madrid, across Europe, we see more and more cities betting on the bike for their recovery because it is a healthy and clean way to move around, an affordable way to move around. And now, especially with our climate action and our climate ambitions, this will become even more important. If we are looking to make our Green Deal success, and if we are looking for a transport mode that is zero emission and affordable, it is right in front of us, and it is the bike. So that's why, especially with the European Green Deal and our climate ambitions, we must do our utmost to help more cities to embrace it. And we can pull different levers to actually get that done. As my boss said, we have to be very practical about this. And we believe at the European Commission, and France believes that too, that we have 3 levers to pull. The recovery that we're seeing across countries and cities, our policies, but certainly also our very practical ways of working together. And to start with the recovery, as said already in the video message by Frans, we see more and more cities embracing cycling and promoting cycling all across Europe. And that is something that my boss has, of course, also personally fought for and said to countries that were designing their recovery plans that it's a very good option and a no regret investment to invest in biking because of the jobs and the construction jobs that are involved in building these bike lanes and the bike infrastructure, but also because of its assets for the European Green Deal. My boss has been quite instrumental in that, but equally instrumental, and perhaps even more instrumental, have been the people on this call, the cycling activists across Europe, because it's because of your relentless lobbying efforts in the capitals when these recovery plans were designed, that we now are also seeing that cycling will reach places like Bratislava and Budapest. So we thank you also for that, and let's keep on pushing for that together. And then I come to our policies. And of course, the reality is when we want to be practical, that a lot needs to happen at the local level. And that will not change. But it doesn't mean that you cannot do anything at the European level. We think, the Team Timmermans, that so far the mindset in Brussels has been, when designing our own rules and our policies, has been too much, no, we don't do cycling unless. And we need perhaps a little bit of a change of a mindset when we look at our own European rules. to think a bit more along the lines, yes, we can do cycling. We can do cycling whenever we can. And I can give you very few concrete examples of that. For example, in Europe, we finance every year very important trans-European transport projects. You know, you can think about a railway that connects two countries. Now, you can look at cycling in that project in two ways. You can treat cycling as an afterthought, don't include it. And then later on, when the project is done, you add a local bike lane to the project, or a biking bridge, or a biking tunnel. Or you can treat and think about cycling upfront and hardwire a bit of cycling thinking when designing your big trans-European transport project in rail, because that could also, in the end, be a humongous economic benefit in lower costs. We, of course, think that the latter way is the smarter way, and we need to find ways to promote that and encourage that. Another example is our European rules for the energy performance of buildings. These are the rules that have given us the certificates for our homes and the energy performance of our homes. What little known is actually that these European rules for the energy performance of our buildings leave space to actually require to improve the energy performance of the building, like a mall or a school or a university, to add parking spaces and chargers for electronic bikes. So when we look at these rules, and we will look at them later this year, we believe that we should potentially, whenever we can, open up that space and indeed add these see that we can add these e-biking dimension to these rules. And there are many more examples of that. When we have European plans to digitize transport modes and bring them together in a multimodal offering, we of course believe that to the extent possible, bike sharing should be a part of that. And when we look at plans to boost sustainable tourism across Europe, that we have this wonderful Eurovelo network that we should take along in those plans. So these are just a very few examples where Europe, despite the fact that we look at European rules, can help in designing policies and rules to help cities embrace more cycling. Now, cyclists are very practical people. We all know that. And a lot of action will still need to take place locally. And that is why this event, this exact event, celebrating the cycling cities arising after the pandemic, is so excellent. Because it allows cities to get together, share experiences, how they promoted biking, see what can even be done better, perhaps even talk about another very important dimension. How can we link the cycling in the cities to the countryside around it? Because as Frans said, with the e-bike, that is, we're democratizing cycling with the e-bike. We're making it available, as he said, for all generations and all physical conditions for people to use cycling. So let's also see a bit how we can link up cycling, link up the concept in the city via cycling, and see how we can take that dimension on board. Now the beauty is, and I'm getting to that now because it's really so great that Matthew Baldwin from DG Move is also here. The beauty of taking climate action is actually that you yourself can also take climate action. Each city can actually have its own local climate mission, design its own plan to tackle the emissions in the city and in the neighborhoods, and also look at zero emission mobility as a part of that. And Europe can and should be a place where that type of ideas and that type of action can get together, group together, so that we have even more clout with them. In the European Covenant of Mayors committed to taking climate action in their cities, we have over thousands of European cities that already work together in this way. We have over 450 major cities on our trans-European transport network that we can seek to stimulate and support a bit more in their sustainable plans. And then I will pass the word on to Matthew, because it's so great that he's here as another very energetic cycling friend. There are like ideas within the Commission to also go a bit further for 100 cities and add a bit more ambition, because local climate action can take place in cities. And let me then start off with where I started, like the fact that we're celebrating here today, celebrating cycling cities. I'm reading Tom Peters again, which is actually an expert in business management. And I'm reading him because he has very bright thinking. He's very bright thinking lines on like that the challenge often is not so much when you want change to persuade people to embrace new ideas, but actually to convince them to let go of the old ones. Now, that is a type of thinking that we really need if you work on a daily basis on the European Green Deal. But he actually also had a very good quote on celebrations. He said you should celebrate those things that you want to see more of. And for the European Green Deal and the climate action we need in Europe, we absolutely want to see more of cycling. So that because of this, the role of cycling in the European Green Deal, we see more of it. We bring it to more places, from Athens to Aarhus, from Bordeaux to Bratislava, so that, in Frans's own words, cycling becomes the European way. Thank you very much.
Daniel, thank you so much for that. So much of that was music to my ears, and I'm sure of my fellow advocates as well. Very, very pleased to have you here today. Thank you so much. We will now continue with our EU perspective here, and I have the pleasure of introducing our next keynote speaker. That's Matthew Baldwin, the Deputy Director General of DG Move and Mission Manager of 100 Climate Neutral Cities by 2030. Matthew is also a champion of cycling who understands its power to transform our cities into climate neutral cities. The sooner the better. So Matthew, the floor is now yours.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you. Matthew Baldwin from the European Commission. How much of the EU can you take this afternoon? I promise this is the last intervention from us. Thanks very much to the ECF, to the Dutch Cycling Embassy for organizing this as part of Hashtag EU Green Week. And congratulations, while we're in a celebratory mood, to Henk Swato, continuing what I would call the Dutch takeover of cycling. And we've had Vice President Frans Timmermans, we have Daniel Mes, and now we have Henk. I didn't even know the Dutch did any cycling until I was joined here today. Slightly more seriously, I completely agree with Daniel. We should do what it says on the tin today, and we should be celebrating what you are doing in cities across Europe to promote cycling. And I love his formulation that we should celebrate cycling precisely because we want to do more of it. I want to do more of it. I have cycled in 6 of the cities we're going to be hearing from later today, and I'm keen to actually try to add to my collection later this year, COVID permitting. Indeed, in my crazier moments, and I think I confessed this to Henk the other day, I was thinking of cycling down to Lisbon for Veloc City 2021 on the strict condition that Miguel Gaspar buys me a Portuguese beer if I make it all the way. Just to follow on from what Daniel was saying, you, the cycling cities, are the people we're celebrating today. You are making cycling safer and thereby making cycling more viable, more pleasant, and more attractive. You're doing it for good and, dare I say it, selfish reasons from the perspective of a city. You know how much it decongests your mobility. You know, and you've both the previous speakers have already referred to it, the amazing health benefits it brings, the benefits to air quality, the benefits to tourism, the boost to retail. There are still many shops out there who don't believe you when you tell them that if you increase cycling, you increase your footfall and you increase your retail sales, particularly as a fight back against the era of e-commerce. You're doing it for post-COVID reasons, because like so many other cities, including here in Brussels, your citizens are demanding that you have another look at how space is shared and allocated within your cities. And if you're a city, there's no better reason for doing something because your citizens are calling for it. Survey after survey that I've seen say that people want to see more provision of bike facilities. How you're doing it is very interesting, and how you can maintain that for the long term. We don't need a cycling blip or a cycling boom. We need a sustained increase in cycling across the continent. You're doing it through infrastructure. We've seen 2,500 kilometers of additional bike lanes announced, 1,500 kilometers already constructed. And there's a wonderful study, which if you haven't seen, I strongly urge it to you, co-sponsored by the ECF and Mercator, which shows that just on the existing COVID infrastructure that has been built, there's been an increase in cycling of between 11 and 48%. The name of the study is called If We Build It, They Will Come, and they are coming. In Brussels, in all of your cities across Europe, they are coming in a big way. And the other great thing about this study is it puts a cost on the, a benefit number on what is being generated in terms of health benefits, roughly 1 billion euros already on the health benefits from the use that we know of the existing COVID bike infrastructure. We, as Daniel mentioned, are very proud to be supporting some of that new infrastructure through the Recovery and Resilience Fund. Well done to the ECF for pushing hard to make things like the construction of new bike paths one of the key things that member states should be doing. All of us are looking like hawks at what is coming back in terms of the member state plans, but some of the signs are very, very promising. Here in Belgium, in Slovakia, Daniel, you mentioned Bratislava, I hear hundreds of millions of euros being put into bike infrastructure and issues like that. My message to you, the cities, go out and claim your share of that and spend it quickly. It's not just about bike lanes, it's about the associated facilities, and you're also scoring big there. Where would Amsterdam put its bikes if it hadn't built these incredible bike storage facilities? The Utrecht underground bike park is a wonder of the modern world. Park and ride facilities, connections with other public transport. In big sprawling cities, you need to encourage people to bike a bit, to take the tram a bit, to take the bus a bit, but maybe to take the car for none of it. These are the ways we will build a genuine sustainable urban mobility structure in all of our cities. Secondly, how are you doing it? You're doing it by regulation. You're doing it by regulating speed in particular. We just had a phenomenal UN Global Road Safety Week, which took as its principal theme the promotion of the default 30-kilometer speed limit on all roads where children and bikes and pedestrians are mixing with motorized traffic. Helsinki, who's represented here today, knows how important that 30-kilometer limit has been in producing, wait for this, 0 road deaths in Helsinki in 2019. Speed is a big part of the risk of cycling, and risk of the cycling is a big part in keeping people off their bikes. If we make cycling safer, we make it more attractive, more people do it, we make it safer again. It's called critical mass, and the critical mass movement right across Europe is testimony to that passion and that belief. If you didn't pick up on the UN Global Road Safety Week, check out some of the extraordinary social media reaction on hashtag Streets for Life, hashtag Love30. And as part of that, the EU itself is considering what we're calling recommendations or guidance on speed, not just in urban areas, but across the piece. But the 30-kilometer speed limit is certainly something which is catching a lot of attention. The third way that cities are really delivering on cycling is, of course, through integrating it into its overall transport planning. And Daniel said a lot about that. I think the example of the energy performance of buildings is a great example of how we can look at and promoting cycling through unforeseen ways, but generally also through sustainable urban mobility planning, mainstreaming that. There's some fantastic cycling guides under sustainable urban mobility plans that I strongly recommend to you if you haven't already seen as a guide, a practical guide to furthering cycling within your cities. I won't go on more about what the EU is doing because I think Daniel's touched it all brilliantly, but we are pushing cycling with our sustainable and smart mobility strategy published last December, where we talk about doubling of safe bike lane infrastructure. We'll be pushing cycling again in the urban mobility framework, which will come out in the last quarter of this year. And if I could just do a bit of advertisement for that, we're just about to begin a major open public consultation. Now, it would be very improper of me to tell cyclists to go out there and make your views known strongly in what you want to see in the urban mobility framework of the future. So, of course, I'm not going to do that. But I hope you take my point. Cycling needs to be heard and it needs to be visible in this public consultation. I'm sure you'll do that. If I may, in just 2 more minutes, Jill, Hank, and then I shut up. I want to say a word about what Daniel kindly said is the support that he and First Executive Vice President Timmermans have given us for our 100 climate neutral cities project by 2030. It's one of the craziest but most exciting things I've ever been involved with. Again, we're trying to do what it says on the tin, which is get 100 climate neutral cities by 2030, thereby making a big contribution to the European Green Deal, the principal project of Frans Timmermans. So we're looking for large cities like yours to become climate neutral. You will be hearing from me, I guarantee that. We know it's ambitious and we know it's tough, but we are hoping to get a green light for our implementation plans on how to do this later this month. And then you will be hearing from us. We will be looking for cities to express their interest in joining these very exciting plans. And then we'll be looking to cities to co-create climate city contracts. And we will be your partner in all of this, trying to help you identify what it is you need, not just in cycling, not just in sustainable mobility, but in all areas, energy efficiency, waste management, the circular economy, lots of all the different ways to help you access the vital funding and financing flows, which will be a major part of your city's capacity to do it. If I could summarize, all of this is a signal that the EU is not backing down on the European Green Deal. I think a lot of people thought that we might when COVID struck, and the political pressures that the Commission has come under. But if you look at the actions of our President von der Leyen, of our Executive Vice President Timmermans, they are saying full steam ahead. And in the Fit for 55 package this summer, you will see just how strong our ambition is. Cycling as part of that, as part of our climate neutral cities, is undeniable. I cannot imagine climate neutral cities doing this successfully without a clear plan for cycling and active mobility. Cycling is a visible and actually a very photogenic embodiment of those commitments to climate neutrality. But we are not, I think, at this stage going to be overly prescriptive and say, this is exactly what you have to do as a city. This is exactly the way you have to do it. But I can't imagine it happening without it. I think Daniel's formula of we do cycling wherever we can is exactly the right one. And I think we have in the past underestimated the different areas where we can do cycling. I'm tired of hearing people say in my city we can't do it because it's too rainy, it's too hot, it's too dusty, it's too hilly. All of those cities can be cycling cities. So I urge you, the existing cycling cities of Europe, to go out there, to be advocates, to be ambassadors like Lucas within your member states, outside your member states, applying helpful pressure on your national governments and on the European level to do the right thing. And ask people, why not cycling in your city? Thanks for your attention. Really looking forward to hearing the discussion as we go. Thanks so much for having me.
Matthew, thank you so much for that. So many great messages to hear there. Claim your share of the money, claim it fast, participate in the public consultation, and all of the rest. Without further ado, I will hand over to my co-moderator, Lucas Harms, the Managing Director of the Dutch Cycling Embassy, for our next part.
Thank you very much, Jill. And now we go to the next part. And I'm very honored and happy to introduce you to State Secretary Stientje van Veldhoven from the Netherlands Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. In the last couple of years, she has been a fantastic and inspirational key person to further boost Dutch cycling conditions and to get even more Dutch people out of their cars and onto their bikes. So good afternoon, State Secretary. Great to have you as part of this event in which we celebrate cycling. Daniel Mess and Matthew Baldwin just underlined the importance of cycling, amongst others, as a tool for climate neutral cities. What is your take on this, looking to it from a Dutch angle?
Excellent, excellent. If I just listen to the previous speakers, I can only be really very excited about everything that's going on. And I can only concur with all of the things that you said. And I've also really experienced this in my previous years, my current years as government. We have supported a master plan for cycling that was presented in Vienna a few weeks ago, because we really think that we can all learn from each other. And if we can share our Dutch practice, of course, we are very, very happy to do so. And I loved the comments about the fact that the Dutch, the bike parking in Utrecht is considered a wonder of the modern world. I'm sure that they'll be delighted to hear it. But it is really impressive if you ride in there, because you actually ride into that parking garage and you see a garage for 13,000 bikes, which is already full. There is so much potential, and it will be a great pleasure to talk to you about how we can harness the potential, both in the Netherlands and in all those other countries around Europe.
Great. So in your perspective, what makes the Netherlands as a cycling country so special? And sometimes I'm being asked like, people think they are born with a bicycle in the Netherlands. What's your take on that?
Well, it's a small secret, but we're actually not born with a bicycle, but we do get our first bicycle at an early age. I think Dutch kids do grow up cycling, and I think that's really part of why it becomes part of your normal choices in transport. And I think that is also what you want to get. Cycling should become, let's say, the natural first thing to do with walking, if it's smaller distances. And of course, and I think many of the previous speakers have also alluded to this, there is the weather, and of course there is whether you're a flat country or not, but it also really depends on how do you work on cyclists, how do you make it safe? And if you look at the Netherlands, you can see that there has been a consistent policy on making the country safe, making roads available for cyclists. And so it's a combination of having the network, having high quality cycling infrastructure, having the parking facilities, having a consistent mobility policy which cycling is taken seriously, and then step by step you become a cycling nation. But anyone can become a cycling nation now with the e-bikes, because no hill is too steep for an e-bike. So we can all get there.
Fantastic. So we heard a lot about the EU perspective already, and we're moving into the city perspective later. So what is, in your opinion, the role of the national government in strengthening cycling conditions, in particular in Dutch daily life? And what is your vision and ambition for the years ahead?
Well, when I became a Secretary of State for public transport and for cleaning up mobility, sustainable mobility, I also called myself State Secretary of the Bike, because if you look at the bike, it's basically our secret weapon against so many of the issues for which I was responsible also as Minister for the Environment. If we look at the short trips in the Netherlands, so many ships are short trips. If you look at those trips, then if we would replace all of the short trips that are taken by car and we would replace them by cycling, this would save us 2 megatons of CO2 per year. 27% of all trips in the Netherlands are done on bicycles, but the cars are used for 3.6 billion short trips, and a short trip is less than 7.5 kilometers. So there is so much to gain in the sense of climate perspective. There is so much to gain in terms of air quality. There's so much to gain in the context of public health. So that's taking all of that together. We aim at a model shift, so more people moving from their car to bike, 200,000 commuters extra. That is what I set myself as a goal. And actually, before Corona kicked in, we were really on track to meeting that goal. And how are we trying to meet that goal? We were investing in regional cycling routes with less junctions, so you can cycle at a higher speed, better parking facilities at railway stations, so as to ensure a good combination between cycling and public transport as an effective alternative for car use, also for longer distances, but also seducing and helping employers to promote cycling for their employees. Fiscal policies, so all of that together has actually been our way to promote more people to step out of their car on their bike. And looking further ahead to the future, we developed the National Cycling Vision 2040, which is basically a combination of regional plans with, let's say, the aim to create a nationwide network of cycling infrastructure and to see the bicycle as a full modality next to train and next to bus. Also in our public transport and in our mobility policy.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of lessons already. And if you have to pick one specific main lesson learned from the Dutch mobility policy and cycling in particular that other cities and other countries can learn from, what would be your pick?
Well, I think the key really is cooperation. The key really is cooperation, because nobody starts to cycle from a beautiful cycling path alone. There needs to be a good cycling path, the speed needs to be right, the parking facilities need to be there, and you can get there step by step, but if you cooperate, you can go much faster. And so this cooperation, it makes sense for employers to invest in cycling facilities at their company if they know that there's also efficient biking lanes. And it makes sense to purchase a good bike if you know that there are good biking lanes and there are facilities at your workplace. So the combination, the cooperation really makes for this entire development to speed up. And that is exactly what we need, because we look at the giant issues that we have, especially in inner cities, then we need to speed up and we need to start using the secret weapon as much as we can.
Fantastic, fantastic. So since this event is focused on the sharing of knowledge and expertise between European cities, what is your take on the importance of sharing Dutch best practices now and in the future?
Well, I'm all for sharing all best practices, whether they are Dutch or otherwise. So please let's not focus only on that, but sharing best practices is absolutely crucial. And if we can help anybody by sharing our experiences, then of course we have the Dutch Cycling Embassy. They have a network of experts, can host study visits, organize workshops, have learning courses. So really, we are very open and willing to share the best practices, but we also love to continue to learn from the experiences that other countries have. And of course, if this would have been a live event, which I would have loved, I must say I'm totally fed up with only having digital meetings, although they are very practical every now and then. It would really have been an honor to reach out to Danielle Mess and Matthew Baldwin and handing them over the first physically printed copy of the best practices, and you have it there, yes. So I promise you, we will send you printed copies by mail, but it's also, of course, downloadable for free on the Dutch Cycling Embassy website. So I really hope that we can create this community, and therefore I will not reiterate the call to not to forget to make sure that the voice of cyclists are heard in the consultation on the EU scale. I really think that we need to start moving together, moving ahead, and I think this could make a great contribution. So please don't forget.
Thanks very much, State Secretary, for your time and your messages and for sharing some best practices from the Netherlands. We very, very much appreciate. And with this, I would like to hand over back to Jill. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Stientje van Veldhoven and Lucas. We now will have our first panel of cities. So I would like to invite following to join me and to welcome Simone Berden, Senior Advisor in the Development Projects and Investments Office from Ljubljana, Alessandro Del Piano, Director of Territorial and Sustainable Mobility of Bologna, Giuseppe Grezzi, Deputy Mayor of Valencia for Sustainable Mobility and Public Space, and finally Piotr Grzelak, the Deputy Mayor of Gdańsk. So, we can see them on screen now. I would actually like to start with Piotr Grzelak. What policies or investments have made the biggest impact on improving cycling in Gdańsk?
Actually, I think that Secretary of Infrastructure said this of infrastructure in Holland, that of course there has to be infrastructure, but also there has to go all together the spirit. And I could say about changes with our infrastructure, which is 200 kilometers of separate bikeways. We have over 600 streets with 30 kilometers per hour, which let the bikes to be friendly. But I think the infrastructure has to give the voice that it's friendly, and has to give this friendly spirit. So we build, but we try to change the paradigm to redistribute the space for biking as well. For biking as well. So this has to go all together. For us right now, this is the very important time, because we are after the pandemic. I hope we are after the pandemic, and I think that this is the momentum for biking as well. I am the father of 3 children, and I can see what happens to them. I mean, they were linked to the computers. They had these lessons online, and we do every year the biggest campaign in Poland, which is Cycling May. We are just about to finish this Cycling May, and all of the schools in Poland took this action from us, and all together, all Poland is cycling. We have, during this pandemic, the time where we were in lockdown, but still we decided to continue this campaign, to let children to go outside after the lessons which were online, but to go outside and do the 1 hour of biking, just to get used to it, just to have this free time for biking. So we think this is very important to convince our children to biking for biking also in this pandemic time.
Okay.
We have some, yeah, okay.
I need to move on just to make sure we've decided today in favor of having lots and lots of speakers. So I'll move on, but we'll come back to you, Piotr. I'd like to move now to Simone Berden from Ljubljana. The same question: which policies or investments have made the biggest impact in improving cycling in Ljubljana?
Hi, thank you. I would focus, or I would say they are free. The first one was closing the city center for motorized vehicles, which we started in 2007. Up to date, this ecological zone in Ljubljana city center is now 12 hectares big. So this is the first one. The second would be the modification of the traffic regime on the main traffic artery, which is Slovenska Street, for all private motorized vehicles, and thus making so-called shared space for public transport, cyclists and pedestrians only. So this is the second. And the third one, I would say our bike sharing system, which actually we launched in May 2011. So it's 10 years old now. We started with 30 self-service terminals and 30 bikes. Up to date, we have 74 self-service terminals and 750 bikes. It doesn't mean a lot for you, for instance, with this number, but perhaps just an information that up to date, we had 8 million rides with these rented bikes. The bike is usually rented 8 times per day. And also, which is perhaps an interesting data, is that 98% of all users are using it only for the first hour. Why is this important? Because the first hour is for free. Ljubljana is quite flat. You can really cycle to one part to another quite quickly. And because the first hour is for free, well, they usually just finish it and just perhaps rent a new one after 5 minutes. But nevertheless, we are still, I would mention these 3 important projects.
Excellent. Good. Thank you very much. Maybe moving back to Piotr Grzelak from Gdańsk. Have you got an example to share of something that worked well or didn't work so well in your city?
Yes, we have, for example, this biking campaign changed the attitude of the children. Before this campaign, we had actually very few trips to school with biking. Right now, we have the level of 50% of trips to school with biking. Second one, this infrastructure change, all of these campaigns led us to go to 6% of the level of bike share, which is not a lot, but we have the regular growth. What worked not as good, so we still have a problem with the public transport, which go less, and the individual transport increases. So the biking is not going instead the decrease of the public transport, which is a big challenge for us.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Simone Berden, the same question for you. Have you got an example of something that worked well or maybe not so well?
Well, not so well, perhaps I would say the behavior of the citizens, it's very difficult to change. Like it was said before that the Dutch are not born with the bicycle. Of course, we have to encourage our citizens, but we have noticed that everybody wants to change the world or your city or the quality of life, but not themselves. So they don't want to really change their own habits, although it looks nice. It's better when there are no cars, where there is no noise. But it's very difficult that I myself must walk or go with the bus on the work. So we have noticed that this is quite difficult, and thus we have made a more stronger communication with our citizens, trying to get their feedbacks. What do they think, or how should we do that? So a closer cooperation with the citizens kind of changed it or solved it a little bit, at least.
Okay, excellent, thanks. Now we'll move for a couple of more questions to Spain and Italy. I think I'll start with Giuseppe Grezzi, Italian name, but you are from Valencia. I understand you've been living there for quite a long time. And what are the biggest advances that Valencia has made in becoming more cycling friendly?
Hello to everybody. Yes, I'm Italian, but I live in Spain since 20 years, and now I'm in charge of mobility in Valencia. Valencia, in 5 years, has become the Mediterranean capital of bicycle. We experimented a great increase of the use of our bike lanes network, an average increase of more than 200%. For example, close to the central station in the city center, we have reached 5.5 million users of the bike ring in 4 years. That's the most used in all the city. In the same period, we've reduced the road capacity and an important reduction of transit. 64% of our streets are right now 30 kilometers per hour. So the immediate results of all this is that we have less pollution, around 2% less, and an important modal shift in favor of walking and cycling. Around 60% of all the modal share is made by walking and cycling. And how we did it? We put, since 2015, on equal basis, cycling and walking. We invest in more and better bike lanes. Right now, after 5 years, we have 30% more, and 40 kilometers more, around 172 kilometers in total. And we created a new renovated cycling culture, and we made many actions with schools, with other people, and we made many activities all year long to promote this new cycle culture.
Excellent, really, really nice stuff. Alessandro Del Piano from Bologna. We'd like to know what are the biggest advances you've made in Bologna in becoming more cycling friendly?
Hello to everyone. Thank you to inviting me. Maybe the most important thing that we did some years ago, it was to change our view, our mentality from the urban mobility to metropolitan mobility. So when we try to look at the bicycle policies from a metropolitan point of view, everything changed, really. It was really much better to improve the mobility, active mobility, especially the bicycle mobility. We decided to have one plan. Matthew Baldwin said before that you must have a plan, mobility plan, a sustainable mobility plan. And we had it in 2018. And in that plan, we said that we must have 1,000 kilometers of bicycle. We call it, or bicycle lane, we call it Bicipolitana. And really in 4 years, almost 4 years, we are almost at half of the realization of that. We are in 400 kilometers almost realized of that 1,000. So that kind of advances, that kind of point of view was the best choice that we did to improve our policies in bicycle.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I'd also like to ask both of you, starting with Giuseppe, what are the biggest challenges that you faced in becoming more cycling friendly?
Yes, well, first of all, the budget. It's never enough, as we know. But most important has been also to gain approval by large part of the population, especially stakeholders as retailers, This is very typical, as we know. But also we had the opposition of local mass media, opposition parties, and all kind, and sometimes in some way the association. Right now, after 5 years, nobody is questioning the importance to make cycling policies because they are working. We are improving quality of life, and we are improving mobility, better mobility, and also, as we've seen, the reducing of pollution. As we know, it's always the same process in every city that we know of. Didn't it? We know it. But despite all this noise, right now Valencia is succeeding. It's becoming a cycling city. In some way, we gain a battle, as to say, against people that they didn't think they could become a cycling city. And right now, if not the first, Valencia is one of the best cities to cycle in all Spain.
Mm-hmm. Super. Alessandro Del Piano, what are the challenges that you faced in becoming more cycling friendly?
We need to have a symbolic action for our cycling policies, and we choose the Sun route Eurovelo number 7. And we decided to be the national coordinator of that kind of project in 2017. And we need it because in our policies, we need something of symbolic, as I told you, because if you can use a bicycle path, bicycle lane with the tourism, leisure, and daily mobility, you can make an example for all the other bicycle lanes. So two months ago, we opened part of the Sun route, 50 kilometers, not so many, only 50 kilometers, 50. But now everybody in Bologna, not only in Bologna, also in the north of Italy, speaks about our Sun route because after the lockdown, it's really important to have that kind of bicycle lanes. Is a metropolitan bicycle lanes, is a touristic bicycle lanes, is an urban bicycle lanes, and now there is a quite important period now for Italy. You know, if you want to buy a bicycle now in Italy, is not possible. Even if Italy is the second country in Europe that produce bicycle, but there is no bicycle. You have to wait at least 6 months, and this because there are several reasons. But one of them is that we have a lot of space where it's possible to improve this kind of new way of life. Because for us, Sun route is not for bicycle, but is for a new way of life.
Okay, so the Sun route, the new stretch of the Eurovelo 7
Exactly.
from Bologna. So nice new addition to these kind of cycle paths. Excellent. So I'd like to close off this panel with a speed round set of questions to each panelist. So if you were suddenly awarded a large budget increase that could only be spent on cycling measures in your city, what would your top priority be to spend it on? So I'll start with Piotr. What would you spend the money on?
I think that the biggest challenge is not you can buy. Actually, if I could buy, but I can't. I could buy the change of the mentality, because right now we are building cycling paths on the cost of walking paths. I mean, this is the change which has to go. That's our redistribution of the space has to go on the costs also of the cars. So this is the process we started.
Okay. So you would buy a change in mentality.
If I could buy, but I know I cannot buy it, so I could buy then separated network, separated bike pass network. Yeah. So it could connect the city parts more closer with bike than with cars.
Excellent. Okay. Simona, over to you. If you were awarded a large budget increase for cycling, what would you spend it on?
Firstly, to expand the bike sharing system, because we actually get propositions from our citizens daily. And second, to build highways from surrounding municipalities to Ljubljana, because every day more than 100,000 cars come into the city for work, for studies. And thus, if we would build a highway to get to the city and to get outside, that would be perfect.
Okay, bike sharing and cycle highways. Giuseppe, what would you spend the money on for Valencia?
Some of that. We have the same problem. I would create more bike lanes, especially to connect suburban areas, and building also some cycle bridges, because we have some old rivers that it's not easy to connect the suburban area. But it will also allow connection with villages and towns of the metropolitan area. We have the same problem because transit to and from the metropolitan area in Valencia is based on car by 73% of all the modal share. So it's a lot. Talking about villages and cities that maybe are 10 kilometers far from the city center. And also very important, we would build intermodal bike park facilities. That would be very important to allow more people to use bikes, especially in peak hours.
Excellent. Thank you. And last but not least, Alessandro, what would your top budget priority for Bologna be?
Sorry, two priorities. One, I'd buy a lot of private spaces to become public spaces. A lot. And because when you are the owner, it's more simple. It's really more simple to do public policies, especially mobility. Secondly, I found an agency, a very rich agency for mobility, sustainable mobility, especially mobility about bicycle and active mobility.
Okay, super. Thank you so much to our four panelists. I think we heard some different experiences there, and also a lot about what they're doing right and what works and what more they'd like to do. So thank you very much. I think we will switch to our next item on the agenda. Now, we would like to move to Geert Kloppenburg. Some of you may be familiar with Geert Kloppenburg. He is the head of the Metropolitan Mobility Podcast, where he, also in partnership with Chris Bruntlett of the Dutch Cycling Embassy, interviews interesting people in the field to hear how cities, politicians, and advocates are working to improve cycling in Europe's cities. And he's put together a video for us, which we'll show you now with some highlights of some of the things that he's checked out.
Welcome at Pakhuis de Zwijger, live from Amsterdam. I'm talking with Geert Kloppenburg. You've, during Corona time, you've traveled through Europe at the safest way possible because you were interested in biking throughout the continent.
Yeah, what happened like around about 2 years ago, I was at the main event, the Veloc City, where everybody was talking about biking and best experience. And actually I said to the Dutch Cycling Embassy, what is a kind of a foundation who tries to show best practices about cycling all around the world. And I said, why don't we start to interview many people around the world and just start off with phoning from Amsterdam. So we started off with the goal of showing that huge explosion of cycling in cities all around the world, and then trying to interview the best experts and asking them all sorts of questions. And that's what we did. And then Corona came, and then the explosion of biking, and certainly from pop-up bike lanes, went even further than we than everybody expected.
You've brought along 2 videos, one from Paris, one from Berlin. Perhaps you can show the first video for Paris. It's starting. The last time I was there, I took a biking trip to the city, and it was not this relaxing. It was quite a lot more stressful, and I've been by car through that tunnel, and it wasn't for biking only.
Have you been biking through that tunnel? Have you done it?
I haven't, no.
But that's actually the thing we did, because you see me with this microphone, and I was almost hit, or I fall off my bike. But the thing was, I talked to Krzysztof Najoski, who is the local mayor of Paris, and talked to him by Zoom. And he told me about this car tunnel, which suddenly was a bicycle tunnel. And to be quite honest, I thought to myself, okay, he can say this or whatever. I've been there 15 times or so. And I said to Krzysztof Najoski, I said, I want to come over after the first podcast and then interview you on the street.
Like going literally with your microphone.
Exactly. And the funny thing was what we did with this whole series, because we talked to people in Los Angeles, in Houston, like all over the place. That was by Zoom. But if you go on the street and suddenly I biked myself with him through this tunnel, and it was just unbelievable to actually go through a tunnel and experience. Then I saw the huge ventilators. You saw it on the movie, what was there for the polluting cars. And suddenly I had the freedom to bike, and I saw Paris in a way I've never seen Paris before, to be quite honest. And I thought that was the whole goal of this podcast series and also videos, is showing these examples of cities who are actually making these huge transformations, and that suddenly in Paris bicycling is far more normal than 15 years ago.
You've also sent a picture for Berlin.
Yep.
A small film from Berlin. Let's have a look.
Yep.
The Berlin video.
Oh, das passt doch nicht.
Well, Geert, quite amazing again. And again, completely different view of this car-friendly city. You saw this all over the world, didn't you? Also in Los Angeles and other places?
Yep, absolutely. What I like about this example is that that they did it so quickly and so cheap. So they had their whole plans, strategic plans about expanding their infrastructure network for cycling.
Yeah.
But suddenly, the last 6 to 7 months, they put in more infrastructure in Berlin than the last 6 years in total. So that is what is going on at this moment in Europe.
Biking infrastructure.
Biking infrastructure. Yeah. That's what's going on. So it's very cost efficient and it's very quick the way they do it. And that's where a lot of people look at that. They think to themselves, oh gosh, if we can change the streets, the public space so much quicker, that is like a really good example what other cities can do as well.
So everything is possible from that point forward.
Absolutely.
Traffic isn't like water. Traffic is human behaviour. It's not an inert object. This is how people move around their city in inert objects, but in itself it is a human behaviour. If you make it a bit harder to drive, easier to walk and cycle, lo and behold, more people do walk and cycle.
Excellent. Geert Kloppenburg, thank you so much for that contribution. I hope that all that today gives you a lot more ideas about who you can invite to your podcast. So over to Lucas now for the next bit.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jill. For the next part of our event, I'm very happy to introduce you to Mario Gualdi, Managing Director of Isinova, and Pascal van den Noord, Executive Director of Velo Mondial. Mario is the overall coordinator of the CVT's Handshake project, which is a successful EU project in which 13 cities exchange best practices and knowledge to improve their cycling conditions. And Pascal is in charge of the so-called immersive events from Handshake and co-author of Handshake's future exploration. I'll give over the floor to Jill, who will be interviewing these two gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Lucas. So Mario, the Civitas Handshake project kicked off about 2.5 years ago, I think. And what would you say are the most valuable things that have come out of this project since you've been leading it?
Yes, you're correct. 2.5 years ago, we have 1.5 years more to go. Thanks for inviting us. The project brings together 13 cities across Europe. I think we should have a slide, I don't know if you got it, in which you can see who these cities are. And there are 13 cities eager to inspire and assist each other. Yes, here you see the map. You can see that we cover pretty much, the whole continent. We have a representation of the whole continent. 13 cities that are eager to assist each other. They share historical knowledge. We have cities with more than 50 years of experience, current practice, and also future plans and cycling innovation. We do this using different methodologies. You will actually be able, if you're interested, to see more about that on our website. Let's say that mentoring schemes are a large part of what we use to share knowledge. Shortly after, I think, our session, there will be a city panel session in which you will hear some of the more specific results. What I can say is that perhaps the overarching result that the most strikes me, as it provides a glimpse of what the future can bring, at least we hope so, is the rise of what we are calling now a transnational community of practice. This is not a universal trend even in our project, because we work, as you have seen, with cities that are profoundly different from a sociocultural and cycling perspective. But we see some of our cities that are developing a planning culture that allows them to no longer work just with their local colleagues, colleagues of their offices, as traditionally done, but also with colleagues that live in other cities and work for other cities. So they are creating a richer, close-knit and mutually supportive group of transnational colleagues. And on an almost weekly basis, they share ideas, issues, designs, tips and plans in a very open and I would say generous way. Another concrete manifestation of what the spirit has allowed is the development of a cycling self-assessment tool that Pascal will shortly show you. We'll find a nice name for it. It was co-designed by us, the experts, but also especially the 13 cities. It was a co-creation responding to the needs of the cities, and it will be open for all cities to use. Before letting Pascal explain a little bit more about this tool, let me just say that it will allow cities to self-assess their capacity, their cycling capacity, identifying strengths and gaps, and also room for progress. So for once, cities will not be subjected to a third-party expert assessment. It is not meant as a competitive or comparative rating system, although we can imagine that some cities will want to sort of use other cities as a benchmark to identify how they can grow even further. So perhaps, Pascal, if you want to talk about the tool.
Pascal, we'd love to have a sneak preview.
Well, it's a sneak preview, and let me share my presentation with you. The European project Civitas Handshake made a portal to assess the proficiency of cycling in your city. In the portal, a city will be guided in assessing their performance in cycling, and we address their hardware, software, and orgware, and we need some background information. In the section hardware, we address coherence, directness, attractiveness, safety, and comfort. You will be asked to choose one of 5 performance levels in 20 areas, ranging from plenty of opportunities to improve to eager for innovation. Under software, we rank perceptions, communications, education, advocacy, and politics. Orgware treats documentation, coordination, design, staffing, investment, evaluation, legal incentives, access, traffic calming, and parking. And then we need to know some background of the city involved. We ask for pictures and videos and a statement of a city politician. And then a status report will be the result, and your status will be copper, bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. In conclusion, the system does not rank cities, but offers introspection and opportunities and insight to improve.
Pascal, thank you for that. I've got one final question about this self-assessment tool. When will it be available?
So we're finalizing an internal test run with our cities and the cities of the Dutch cycling. We are already happy with the way the system works. We will officially release it sometimes around September or October. It will be available to all cities. One last thing, Jill. We believe that this tool will be also part of a cycling platform that within Handshake we are for the moment imagining, and we hope to release it by the end of the project and next year in the summer, August 2022. And the idea is to continue what the project allows cities to share knowledge, network amongst themselves, network with the cycling world, with the industry, researchers, consultants, associations. Obviously, we have to find the funding, so let's see if we're able to pull that off.
Excellent, and excellent prospects for how this can be used in the future to continue the learning and the best practice sharing. So thank you very much. I would like to turn back over to my co-host, Lucas Harms, for our next panel.
Thanks very much, Jill. Yeah, we continue the second roundtable, and for this we have another great selection of speakers representing various cities around Europe. Which, by the way, are also part of the Handshake project, which we just discussed before. So I'm very happy and honored to announce that we have Hazel Chu, Lord Mayor of Dublin, Otso Kivikas, Chair of the Helsinki City Council, Egbert de Vries, Deputy Mayor of the City of Amsterdam, Sitselberg Euler, head of the Office of Supercycle Highways, Copenhagen, Denmark, and Andreas Schuster, member of the Munich City Council. So fantastic to have you all here. And let's start this second round. And I just want to start off with asking Lord Mayor of Dublin, Hazel Chu, thanks for being here, and fantastic that you are here. In Dublin, you successfully campaigned on the issue of improving cycling infrastructure. Do you have any advice for politicians from other cities that might do the same?
Yeah, don't give up on it. So would be the first bit. But yeah, it's a long road. Like, you have European countries like Denmark that has, and Holland has amazing infrastructure. Cycling is part of their urban planning, whereas in Dublin it wasn't. And what we've noticed is with COVID, we've had to provide more space and more sustainable transport for people. People didn't want to be in a car, and people didn't want to share cars with people, and people didn't want to go on public transport. So they were actually asking for more, whereas previously it was always, we will opt for the car and we will opt for a different mode of transport. We don't want to cycle, or some people actually were scared of cycling, whereas we created what we call the co-vote mobility section, which is all to do with COVID and how we social distance and how we go from one A to B in a form where it's socially distancing. So we had more cycling infrastructure. We put in more pedestrianisation. A lot of Dublin city centre is now pedestrianised, and it should have been pedestrianised previously, but now is a great opportunity to do it. And I loathe to say the word opportunity because there's been so much death and sorrow and loss of life and loss of jobs. But in COVID, what we've realised when it comes to pushing for sustainable transport, it has been the perfect time because people were willing to accept the change, or at least people were willing to see how it goes because everything else was in flux.
Yeah, wow, that sounds wonderful. So, and did you already see like a big change also due to COVID, that there was a change in the behavior as well, that people really took over and used their bikes more often? And how are you going to foresee how to get this sort of permanent change also in the future post-COVID?
The permanent side is harder. What we've seen with the change is that there has been, apparently the amount of bike sales has gone to a historic first. It has never been so much. All the bike shops have actually said they are back ordering on bikes. We've rolled out a new fleet of city centre bikes that are electric hybrid bikes to support people who aren't that comfortable cycling for a long period, so that they have that support. And that the uptake the data shows has been quite high. Again, it shows that shift. It shows that people are willing to hop on a bike before they hop in a car. Unfortunately, the change management to change it into more permanent is a little harder. The routes that we've put in cycle lanes, segregated cycle lanes, there's been a lot of pushback from locals who think that this is a permanent change to their environment. And the I guess task was to convince them, and in some areas we've done really well, thanks to actually generational push, thanks to children forming what we called school buses, where a bus bike, I think they call it, where a group of children all travel together to go to school at a certain time. And that has been able to encourage adults to see the benefits of changing to changing the network. Whereas other areas, we haven't. Other areas, no matter how much we talk about generational change, we talk about safety children, we talk about air pollution and how it be cleaner for surrounding areas, it hasn't been able to convince people. So on one side, people have been convinced, on the other, they haven't been. So I say there's about 40% of people that haven't gone along with the change management, and 60% have.
Wow, yeah, that's still a fantastic change as opposed to what it used to be a couple of years ago. So congratulations on that, and hope you can make the swift towards more permanent behavioral change as well in the future. And we're very much looking forward to visit again. We were there in 2019, of course, part of Veloc City in Dublin. Would be lovely to see it now as well.
Great to have everyone over. It actually would. It's just seeing people would be amazing at this stage. But no, we have new cycle routes, especially along the coast. the Leary-Rotterdam County Council, which is the labouring council, has done really well. And I don't know, is it because, again, their their ability to change people's minds has been easier, or because they're along the coast that it has proved valuable to change the coastal route to a cycle race straight away, so that people can see the day-to-day benefits as well as the tourism benefit as well.
Wow. Thanks very much, Lord Mayor Hazel Chu, for your time and contribution. Very much appreciate. Yeah, we move over to the next person in the roundtable. Also, Kivikas, the chair of the Helsinki City Council. Also, fantastic to have you as well as part of this event. As one of the recent outcomes of the Handshake project, Helsinki performed a so-called bikenomics study into the costs and benefits of improving cycling conditions in your city center. And last weeks, it went sort of viral via social media. Can you maybe very briefly tell about this and how this fits also into the wider ambitions for the years ahead in Helsinki?
Okay, sure, I love this. Okay, so we did a bikenomics analysis on one street change project called Hämeentie, which is an old artery. It's a major road. It used to be one of the 2 incoming roads to Helsinki like centuries ago, but it's still quite major road. And we did there a change where we introduced bike lanes since there were none, but we had to take away the car lanes. So it's not anymore permitted to drive through with a private car. There's only trams, buses, and bikes. And obviously this was a major debate in order to make such a change on a major road. Okay, so we did a bikenomics analysis on this change, and we got a cost-benefit ratio of 3.6, which means that the benefits of increased bike traffic are more than 3-fold the costs plus the additional time spent by car drivers. So it was hugely beneficial on this analysis, even though it didn't even include the speed up of the public transit, which was also a major reason for this change. And looking at a bigger picture, now we are discussing that we should include these health benefits of increased cycling, include them on our normal cost-benefit analysis on all our traffic projects, so that it's not only a specific cycling project analysis tool, but it's included on normal cost-benefit ratio analysis, because it is a major feature of the costs and benefits. It's not only about speed saved by motorists, it's a lot bigger impact what we can do on the health of the citizens.
Thanks very much. Also, that sounds really inspirational, fantastic. On a very different topic, Helsinki is also a champion in winter cycling. We can't, of course, now the sun is shining and it's becoming summer, but in winter times, Helsinki is managing to keep people on their bikes. What is your, that looks fantastic, your background. What is your advice for other cities which struggle with sort of winter cycling conditions?
Okay. Yeah, so traditionally in Finland, we have cities with winter cycling and cities where people think it's not possible to cycle on winter. Helsinki used to be one of the latter ones. So everyone thought that, okay, no one cycles on winter. It's just not possible because there's snow. But then 800 kilometers north of Helsinki in Oulu, everyone cycled on winter because they have to get around. Of course you cycle in the winter. So we started by looking at what do they do in Oulu? And we quickly learned that some of their techniques are not applicable to Helsinki because in Oulu, the snow is there permanently. In Helsinki, it comes and goes. And then we started to look into Copenhagen, since in Copenhagen, the snow also comes and goes. And their techniques were a lot more useful for us. They are using brushing and salt, whereas in Oulu, they are using plowing the snow. But also in Copenhagen, the snow usually melts entirely, whereas in Helsinki, it tends to melt a bit and stay. So we couldn't we couldn't just copy what they do in Copenhagen. But what we learned from both of them is the attitude. That it's not, we used to have a snow plowing with the attitude that, okay, this is what you can do with a snow plow. This is the result you get. But that's the wrong attitude. The right attitude, both in Oulu and in Copenhagen, is that you decide what you need. that we need to get people to feel comfortable cycling in the winter. And then we just look what we need to do in order for people to feel comfortable cycling in the winter. And as you can see on the background of my image currently, we have their cycle path with no snow because it's been brushed away and road salt has been used to get rid of the ice. And that is the way we are currently doing on our major cycle paths. That's I would recommend to all other cities, that you have to study different techniques because the winter conditions are different on different parts of Europe. So no single technique is suitable for everywhere, but the technique, if you look at a couple of different techniques from different cities and start trying them, then you learn what works best in your conditions. And keep the attitude that only it has to be good enough. It's not sufficient to just don't be happy with sufficient, you need perfect.
Thanks very much, Otto. That's brilliant and very inspirational. We're moving on to the next panelist, and that's Egbert de Vries, Deputy Mayor of the City of Amsterdam. Fantastic to have you also as part of this roundtable. From the side from Amsterdam, what is from your side the most important lesson that cities with low cycling levels can learn from cities with high cycling levels like Amsterdam if they want to become more cycling friendly?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this interesting meeting, and I'm happy that so many people have joined you to look at cycling in a more international perspective and learning from each other, because we believe in Amsterdam this is the only way forward. There's lots of inspirational activities going on in the world of cycling. Although many people think that the Netherlands and Amsterdam in particular are very advanced when it comes to cycling as a means of normal public transport, in fact, there are also a lot of things we can learn from you. New ways of cycling and the new enthusiasm which springs from this meeting is also inspirational to us. But this is the message that I would like to bring across this panel: is it's hard work to become a very good cycling city. You just need to do a lot of work on the ground. You need to create infrastructure which is good to use for cyclists. It's behind Mr. Harms. You can see the normal kind of infrastructure that we create in the Netherlands, where the lanes for cars are separate from the lanes for bikes, which creates a safe atmosphere for bikes to cycle. And this is how we've been doing it for ages, creating cities where bike lanes and car lanes were separated from each other. But we're also moving on because we're trying to make our cities even more bike friendly by creating roads that again are mixed with cars and bikes, but then where cars have a very small part in the transport of the city, because we're looking at being more selective for the use of cars of inner cities, just because they are heavy, they create unsafe situations, and there are difficulties with parking cars, the extent to which parking cars takes up public space, and there's difficulties with pollution, obviously. Even if we are trying to create a situation where all our cars are electrically powered, we still have a lot of fossil fuel engine powered cars, which creates pollution in the cities. So we are advancing from situations where we had a lot of bike lanes and car lanes to, in our inner cities, create situations where bikes have the priority and cars are just following.
Great. So what's your aim and ambition for Amsterdam as a cycling city is in the years ahead?
We would like to improve the number of people using bikes on the smaller distances, but also on longer distances. And this is where we'd like to work together with the cities in which we cooperate in the Handshake project. How are you creating facilities for bikes, and what can we learn from each other? Because we don't think that the project is us being the mentor telling the other cities what to do. It's more a bilateral exchange of thoughts and ideas where we can learn from you as well. And one of the things we're working on is longer distance bike lanes, not only inside Amsterdam, but also between Amsterdam and neighboring cities and towns, so that people can also use their bikes for their normal movement, daily movement from and to work, from and to school and education, on longer distances, because we all know that there is a huge shift going on from normally powered bikes to electric powered bikes. And these have the possibility of taking longer distances. So perhaps we can also together work on a situation where even for the longer distances, bikes will become a more a means of transport which is used more than cars. So we're constantly working on improving the facilities for bikes on the smaller distances and the longer distances. And we'd like to continue with this in the future together with all our European partners and colleagues.
Thanks very much for this invitation also to continue the conversation and collaboration with other cities in Europe and your vision on the city of Amsterdam for the future. Thanks very much. We are moving forward to the next speaker in our panel, and we are moving to Copenhagen, the other champion city. Sitzelberg Euler, head of the Office of Supercycle Highways, capital region of Denmark, and also ECF board member. So as already said, Copenhagen is another fantastic inspiration for cities around the world. You are the head of the Office of Supercycle Highways. Can you please tell us a little bit more about this concept of supercycle highways and how other cities can learn from this?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for letting me be here today among all these great and visionary politicians. So the Cycle Superhighways is a collaboration between 30 municipalities and the capital region, so the Copenhagen region. And we're aiming to make a regional network of routes supporting bike commuting. And so the vision is to make more than 850 kilometers worth of cycle superhighways. And so far we have made 182. So we got quite a long way to go, as you could probably imagine. But basically the idea behind is that we want to be the third pillar in regional transport planning. So you got regional transport planning for cars, for public transport. We want to be that for cycling. And talking about cities today, this actually started as a big city vision. It started with Copenhagen, where they set themselves a goal. They wanted everyone commute, or they want 50% of all commuters to go by bike in Copenhagen. And then they looked into the numbers and they found, well, the problem is not our citizens working in our city. The problem is all the people commuting across the municipal border. So suddenly they could not solve the problem themselves. They needed to reach out and get the other municipalities to collaborate to make this attractive infrastructure that would make people take their bike also across the municipal border. It started with 16 municipalities. Now we have evolved to a collaboration of 30 municipalities. So we've been on our way. But so far, we can see that it is really proven and effectful to do this, because on the cycle superhighways we have made so far, we have seen an increase in bicycle traffic of an average of 23%. We can also see, as the other was talking about, the long distance cycling, people are actually willing, because on the cycle superhighways, we see an average distance of 11 kilometers each way. When you compare that to the regional train network, that's an average distance of 12 kilometers that's being commuted on that network. So we can actually prove that we're quite competitive when it comes to distance willingness, right? And so I think, and also Copenhagen almost reached their goal. So that's also a great add to the story. But I think the key learnings here is actually just that even if you have a local problem, you might not be able to solve it alone locally. You have to look strategically on a regional and an intermunicipal level if you really want to boost your city to a cycling city. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. So maybe you already said in so many words, what does it need for effective intermunicipal cycling networks? What are the main barriers or the trade-offs to make?
So many, I don't even know where to begin, but I think one of the key factors of the success behind this collaboration has actually been to understand that these municipalities, it's 30 municipalities, think about that, it's rural municipalities, it's suburban municipalities, it's urban municipalities. And one of the things that they have said is that it's been really important that Copenhagen was not too dominating. So even though Copenhagen initiated the whole idea, it is really important that we understand the needs and the premises of working with cycle planning in a rural or a suburban municipality. So everything we do is based on a cooperative work. So the vision, the concept, everything is done in a joint collaboration. And I think that's really crucial to understand, that it is so important if you want to go anywhere.
Thanks so much, Sitzel, for your fantastic insights. Very much appreciate. And with this, we go to the last speaker of our round table. Last but not least, Andreas Schuster, a member of the Munich City Council. Hello, Andreas, great to have you. And for you, the question, what are the specific best practices from the city of Munich that have been or could be an inspiration for other cities from your perspective?
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Lucas, for having me. I'm very happy to speak on behalf of the city of Munich and show you a glimpse of our Munich cycling marketing campaign. We want to rethink mobility, gain experience, and share knowledge. I think it's perfect for the Handshake project also. I want to introduce you to our welcome folder for new citizens. Munich is a growing city like so many others. Every year, we are welcome around 70,000 new citizens. The main focus of these new residents is to orient themselves in a new city in which mobility is a central issue and a crucial point where people are open to change their behaviors. In cooperation with the public transport company, we're therefore offering new citizens a first information kit to discover the city by environmental friendly transport systems. So how it works, after registering in the city office, the new residents will receive a package of information as a welcome gift. In addition to useful information about mobility in Munich, the package also includes the possibility to request further materials for free. For example, a test ticket for 1 week for the public transport or the Munich cycle route map. The response rate of our dialogue marketing is about 20%. 40% of the new residents order a test ticket for the public transportation. But come to cycling, we offer the new citizen bike tours. These tours are a nice welcome for new citizens and help to enabling a quick identification with the new neighborhood. Next to experience beautiful cycling trips throughout our beautiful city, the tour guides teach participants the most important traffic regulations and answer questions about Munich cycling network. Also, the recommended group size is 8 to 12 people. We have done tours with more than 30 people. And actually, I was in charge to do this. It was very interesting with so many people. And it's really a pleasure to show and welcome new inhabitants in this way. I think it's a success story since the very beginning. And maybe one important note, all in all, the Munich mobility marketing is really cost efficient. We spend around 50 cents per citizen per year.
Wow, that's wonderful. That all sounds fantastic. Liz, thanks very much. And maybe you can also share a little bit about the bike referendum from 2019. I think you were also part of it, and it was sort of a major game changer. The follow-up and the ambition for Munich for the years ahead. Would be wonderful to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. As you mentioned, I was actually I was one of the members who founded the bike referendum called Radentscheid München, and we started, or we were out on the streets in 2019, but we started, as we saw before, the streets of Berlin. We started in 2017-18, where there was also a referendum in Berlin, and it took some time to bring it to the streets. The referendum demands a cycling infrastructure with improved conditions for cycling in Munich that go far beyond the requirements of the legislation. Munich is the most, as I said, densely populated city in Germany and still continues to grow. This confronts the city with many challenges. Above all, the mobility offer must be designed for the future, as we heard many times today, and cycling for sure can be part of the solution or the big game changer, in my opinion. Currently, the model split for private motorized transport is still 34%. Most of the vehicles used for this purposes are still powered by fossil fuels. The model split for bicycle use is 18% or around 20%, but these are numbers from 2017, so I guess we have reached a little bit higher level now. Therefore, the adoption of the demands of the Ratsentscheid, the referendum, was decided in the City Council 2019. The redistriction of road space, like Marco de Brömelstedt just wrote in the comments, is therefore a big issue now. In order to achieve the requirements for greater safety, comfort, and attractiveness in cycling and the entire environmental network, the abandonment of motor vehicle traffic in terms of lanes, parking spaces, and performances has to be discussed. And as we heard today, it has to be discussed in every city this way. So thus the city is facing a paradigm shift. The balance between the demands of the referendum and a conceptual approach is a big challenge. Therefore, the city involves the initiators of the referendum also. So what are we doing? Since 2019, we have decided 43 concrete measures, but we are actually currently waiting for them to be implemented. The first part of the Altstadtradelring, a bicycle lane around the inner city, has already been set up. We are also working on a bicycle pathway network, more and improved bicycle parking systems and road safety, especially in crossings. But we are just at the start of the change, if you ask myself, and we have really a lot to learn. And this was also shown by the questions in the chat. So I would love to have the button on Gert's video to change the feed just and I'm very happy to be part of the international community, like, for example, the Handshake program.
Thanks very much, Andreas. That's really wonderful. Thanks for the inspiration. We are running a bit over time, so unfortunately we have to round up this inspirational roundtable. Thanks very much for the inspiration that you all offer by sharing the best practices from your respective cities. We very, very much appreciate, and I will give over the floor now again to Jill.
Thank you very much, Lucas. We heard a couple of mentions today of the Veloc City conference. So that is the premier global event for cycling planning. This year, it will be held in Lisbon from the 6th to the 9th of September, and next year in Ljubljana in June. But I would like to turn over now to Miguel Gaspar, the Deputy Mayor for Economy, Innovation, Mobility and Safety in Lisbon, and Caroline Serfontaine, the Director of Veloc City, to hear a bit about what's planned for that. Thank you very much.
Well, what a pleasure to have you with us, Miguel. So Lisbon is really getting ready for Veloc City. We can see it. We can see the developments. We're following them. We can't wait to be there in person, to witness them with our own eyes, because in the last 2 decades, from the first 3 kilometers in 2001, yeah, you have now very ambitious objectives for 2021. So can you tell us a bit more about these infrastructure developments?
So historically, Lisbon, it's known about the city of the 7 hills, right? So for many, many years, you have been heard that you cannot cycle in Lisbon. That doesn't make sense to use a bicycle in the city of Lisbon. And I actually just recovered an article from 2005 where we almost used the words of crazy people to those that wanted to implement a cycling network here in Lisbon by 2005. And I think a lot has changed, as you said, in the past 10 years or so. I think there is a strong community of people pushing for bicycles here in Lisbon, and they prove that you can cycle in the city of Lisbon, because in fact, Lisbon, it's 85% plan or flat. So there is no major issue in cycling in Lisbon. What we didn't have prepared was a safe environment for bicycles in the city. So we saw the first bicycle lanes around 15 years ago, 17 years ago, but there were small cycle lanes. Then 10 years ago, more or less, we started pushing the cycle lanes near the river. But more recently, in the past 3 or 4 years, we are really pushing for the network. So our aim is to achieve 200 kilometers of network here in the city of Lisbon. When I started as deputy mayor 3.5 years ago, more or less, we had around 60. So we want to triple at least the cycle network that we had, and we just keep pushing that network to the city center where actually people live and where the cycle line makes more sense. And basically the goal is to make the city more inclusive, because it's not about the ones that are against. It's the same thing, I guess, in every city. Says, hey, do you want to push everyone to using the bike? Well, we don't want to put everyone using the bike. We are just making possible to the choice for the bike. And that basically, it's a more inclusive city. It's a city where people can actually choose. They can choose the bicycle, they can choose the public transport. They can even use the car if it fits them. But we need to find and prioritize the modes inside the city. So we need people walking. Walking is the basic form of mobility. We need to have the bicycle to actually enlarge our area of influence and pushing for those kinds of concepts of the 15-minute city, or the city of the short loop, where basically people live and work near their home. And basically we also need public transport for the longer distance. And then of course in the end we still have the car, but that's what we need to push. And because if we don't provide these kind of options, what will happen is that we will fail with the next generations, with our kids, to whom we have promised a better city by 2030. That was the promise of the Paris Agreement, the Mayor's Pact, or even the C40 network, where actually the city of Lisbon is strongly committed in reducing its CO2 emissions. So it's basically a part of the package where we really want to change mobility through public transport, through bicycles, and also for improving the walking conditions, and basically to return the public space to the people. And when we do it, people use it. So we should keep pushing.
Thank you very much, Miguel. It's true. It's very important to make the city more inclusive, rethinking the street space. But you are going further than that in Lisbon, because you're also making it possible for people to get purchase incentives when they want to buy a new bicycle. So how has the population responded to that?
They are responding very well. Basically, we have 4 pillars in our strategy. One is the cycle paths. We need to the cycle lanes. We need to have a safe environment to cycle in the city. Another one, it's actually to teach the kids how to cycle. We found out a few years ago that only 25% of the kids knew how to ride a bicycle. So we need to provide them that capacity and to give them the tools so that they can choose to use the bicycle when they grow up. Then of course also the parking facilities, because a lot of houses in Lisbon, actually more than 60% of the houses, don't have garage, so you need to find proper safe places for people to park the bicycle. And then finally we are providing support for the acquisition of bicycles. Basically we give we support conventional bikes, e-bikes, and cargo bikes, and basically the incentive grows as this bike gets more expensive. And so basically we have financed till today around 5,000 bikes, and we have committed to finance 3 million euros of public funding to support the acquisition of bikes, meaning that of the overall value, it's probably over 7 to 8 million euros of bicycles in the city, which is actually pretty good, because not only we are ramping up faster the use of the bicycles in the city, we are doubling the numbers every year. We double the numbers of people using the bicycle, but also in Portugal we are one of the main manufacturers of bicycles in Europe, so it's actually a support to the economy as well. So it also and also for and we support the bicycles that are bought in the physical shops of the city. So basically it's also an economic tool to support the local commerce and the local shops that manage the bicycles in here in the city. So it's a very positive measure where basically we accelerate the adoption of bicycles. You can be a resident in the city of Lisbon, or you can just study or work in the city of Lisbon, and you are eligible for the program. And then also we support the economy with putting money on this kind of products that are relevant for the city.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Really awesome, a real success story. So yeah, as you well know, the preparations for Velocity are in full swing. We're really looking forward to coming to Lisbon. The situation regarding the development of the pandemic is looking really positive for the moment in Portugal. So can you tell us a bit more about how you're getting ready to host Velocity?
Well, the COVID-19 was a shock for everyone, I guess. So we were all disrupted our lives because of the COVID, and basically we were the next city in line to host the Velocity. So my last experience in Velocity was dancing, a bunch of people dancing together on the top of the Guinness factory when we got together last conference, and those kind of images seem far away these days, that we are all we have to put ourselves in social distancing and things like that. So it has been a long path that we also thank you to the ECF for all the support that we received to adapt the Velocity conference to this new reality. We were expecting more than 2,000 people in Lisbon. Today we are expecting 1,000 in September. So we are still waiting how it goes. But we already sold more than 30% of the tickets. So there is the interest of people to get together again in the city of Lisbon. And for us, in the end, it's a party, of course, around the bicycle, but it's also a test for us because we have committed to transform the city of Lisbon in a more bicycle friendly city. And basically, with all these experts of bicycles coming from all over the world to Lisbon, where we are putting ourselves on the grill. So basically, now we have to deliver. But that's okay. As that's a positive pressure that we have. We have been pushing a lot due to the COVID, the pop-up cycle lanes, and we have made big improvements in our network in this last 1.5 years, more or less. We are really pushing. We know that a lot of the work has to be done yet. We were the Green Capital in 2020, and we were the European Capital of Mobility in 2019, the Mobility Week of 2018. And we were not because of our absolute KPIs, but because of the will and our commitment to change and the speed that we want to change. So I guess for those that are returning to Lisbon, you'll find a much more bike-friendly city that a full transformation these past 2 years. And hopefully we'll have positive critics that will help us to improve the network where there are some flaws that we need to correct. So in the end, it's putting the experts cycling in the city to discuss the bicycle, to discuss the use of bicycles in the city, and to push us for a better future. So we are looking forward to it. It's in September, in the end of August. We expect to have the vaccination here in Lisbon. We are putting the vaccine through ages. And in August, we are starting to vaccine the people around 20 to 30 years. So one of the final sectors of the population. And so by September, we expect to have a very safe situation and environment here in the city of Lisbon. The numbers today are okay. And in September, I don't see any reason for them not to be better. So I think we are ready to host the Velocity and looking forward to this big discussion, conversation, but also a party, which is Velocity.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Thank you so much for your support in organizing this conference. The magic of Velocity is already operating, pushing cities to show their best to the international cycling community. So thank you once again. And I'll now turn over to Jill and Henk. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we're coming up to the close. So without further ado, I will turn over to Henk for our closing words.
Thank you very much, Jill. And let me first make a practical announcement. Many people have been asking whether it would be possible to see the whole conference again. And I have good news, it will be possible. We will put the whole program out on YouTube, and it will be announced on the ECF website and through our social media channels. Now, we have learned a lot. So basically, we've had lots of lessons today, but now it's the time for the homework assignment. So if you are a city or a local authority, go and do the Civitas Handshake self-assessment test and see how you're doing. On the basis of how you're doing, go then and make policies, make plans, and remember also Matthew Baldwin's call, and consider whether you want to sign up to become one of those 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. For the cyclists among us, the cyclists among the audience, go and organize yourselves, become active, or follow the example of Otso and Andreas, who started out as cycling activists, but who ended up to become mayors or deputy mayors in their cities where they can really make a difference. And if that's a step too far, then you can just join your local cyclist organization and add your voice to the cycling advocacy that they are doing. And for the non-cyclists among the audience, if there are any, just go and get on your bikes, start cycling. Final word, I would like to thank our speakers and panelists on behalf of the Dutch Cycling Embassy and ECF. And we haven't seen them, but we have heard them sometimes. I would very much like to thank the teams at ECF, at the Dutch Cycling Embassy, and at Green TV, who have been organizing all this perfectly behind the scenes. Also, of course, a word of thanks to our hosts, Jill and Lucas. Job well done, thank you very much. And finally, a word of thanks for all you for being with us for 2 hours. I don't know how the weather is there, but here it's a wonderful day. And I guess it's like that in most of Europe. So I will now go out on my bicycle, and I hope you will be able to do the same. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.